Hello and welcome to Dungeoneered, a podcast dedicated to discussing Dungeons and Dragons. I'm Aaron.
And I'm Josh.
Let's do this. So Josh, this week's Lukewarm Open, I was kind of stuck between a couple of topics, and I decided I was going to go with one that we kind of had touched on a little bit throughout Dungeoneered's history, mainly because I think it's a very fascinating subject, both in real life and in Dungeons and Dragons. And so for this week, I kind of want to talk about underwater stuff in D&D.
Okay.
Specifically, I want to talk about like underwater civilizations, because I'm curious how you see them working and running, because I don't know, they've got to be different than like an above ground civilization in terms of, resources and stuff like that. So I'm just really curious if you've ran an underwater portion of a campaign or have underwater civilizations and what they look like.
Well, this next campaign, I already have set up some stuff when it comes to underwater civilizations.
Oh, hook me up with the hot details.
Yeah, so I have a main continent, which is pretty big, and a smaller, like Australia-sized continent. And they're both like right next to each other.
Is
in
it just
between them,
two, or is that like?
That's the continents. There's many nations on those continents.
The only ones? Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah. In between them, I don't know terms for geological things. Maybe it's a strait.
Like a body of water in between two continents, and it's not very big?
Yeah, I mean, it's big, but it's big downwards more than it is. But whatever it is, in there is another nation.
Oh, gosh.
So it's the nation, but the nation is that middle part. Now, I have it specifically being that this nation is not like an economic powerhouse and doesn't have a great military either. And so it is the only reason it is not consumed by another nation is because no other nation wants it.
So it's completely underwater. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, 100% underwater. It's run by aquatic races, and the only reason it hasn't been consumed by a bigger nation is because no bigger nation has the power or willingness to try and control it.
Is that so? Does this have you decided what it's going to look like or how it's going to operate? Like, is it, you did say it was like aquatic races, so I'm assuming like Triton and stuff like that. Have you decided kind of what their cities are going to look like?
Cities are going to look a lot like the other cities in the world, but underwater. They're heavily influenced by the cultures around them, because most of the creatures that are running this nation are a mix. They are both in water and on land type races. So they have a lot of experience with these other forms of buildings and such.
So let me get this straight. So it's a completely underwater civilization, and the cities look similar to the nations that are kind of around them.
Yes.
Because the like Tritons and whatever other aquatic species have been on land and stuff as well, and so they've brought that back to their culture?
Yes.
So, now, here's my really big question, because I've been really curious about how this would work. What do they do for, like, food? Is it, like, purely fishing? Do they, like, raise fish? Do they, like, have farms?
Yeah, there's definitely farms of fish. And there's definitely
I think it's just
they seaweed is a huge export of theirs. Salt is another huge export of theirs. I wasn't sure if I was going to have them do any sort of mineral or like mining stuff, but I might.
Because it would be, I mean, it's interesting and fascinating to me, because if you do like fish, right? If their main like, source of food is fish, okay? Do they have like big hatcheries? Like, do they like make?
They're highly
to, like, house fish.
Yeah, it's like a farm where it has plenty of room for the fish to run and roam, but
Or
it's
you know what
still
else
this
could be, too?
contained.
What you could do is you could have like these like either small trenches or like holes that are way deep in the ground, and they cover them with like big nets, and then they have openings in them that they fit through when they want to get the fish out. So like these big trenches are covered by these nets that the fish can't swim out of, and they, like can dump bait and stuff in there to feed them and things like that. That would be a very interesting concept for an underwater civilization.
See, I was kind of imagining like large domes of like
made
a
of what,
large like a fence, like a large domed fence that gives a 3D space for the fishes to swim around in.
Because that'd be a lot of work. But if it was like a big natural trench and they sectioned it off or something and covered the top with rope or something like that, then it would give fish a really big area to swim to. But also cost like no resources to maintain. But anyways, I've always wondered like what, because you always have like the typical like Atlantis and things like that. But I always wonder, how would a civilization actually function down underwater? Like, would they heavily tax the strait because like ships couldn't go through there, right? Because it's their own.
Oh, it's
land.
definitely a way that they make their
does that
money
work?
for sure. I definitely have them controlling the strait above.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't dare. I mean,
but as of right now,
about it,
so I would say this one tried to do that, as tried to have it be like, hey, we're gonna. But the other nations were more powerful and pretty much like, no, you're not.
Yeah. But then it's like, too, even if, and this is kind of bringing back to what you talked about earlier, even if a nation is like, no, you're not, and it's like, well, what are you going to do to stop us? How are you going to come down here and get us? You're going to turn your entire army into fish? Like, what are you going to do? It's like, it'd be such a, especially it'd be such an advantage, especially because like Triton and a lot of aquatic races in D&D can go on land. It'd be such a huge advantage. Like there'd be no plausible, unless you gave your entire army like water breathing or whatever, which I get.
What would you do for an underwater nation?
I don't know. It's really difficult. First thing, obviously, I'd have to think about how they get around and travel, right? Do they just swim everywhere, or do they have like dolphins
mine use animals. They have, like, we have carts. They have like shark transportation and dolphin transportation.
Yeah, like I'd probably do like a giant whale that like pulls a huge cart behind it or whatever when it swims, like a partially buoyant, thing that people can sit in. I don't know, but they'd ride around on dolphins and different underwater creatures. But like I think my main limitation, because thinking about it, like if I was like making a tier list of nations, it'd be really hard to even remotely take over a nation like that, or like deal with
yes,
something
100%,
like that,
and that's why mine is quote unquote safe.
Yeah, exactly. So I'd probably have to be like, the limiting factor of a nation like that is that their food is going to be way harder to produce, like way, way harder. We can grow tons of food on land. You could grow some seaweed maybe and stuff like that.
I would make their biology eat different things than ours.
Yeah, like
I think they would, barnacles would be things they would eat. I think they would eat plankton. Okay. They would eat kind of like I would think they would eat more underwater vegetation than we do.
Oh, for sure, they absolutely would. But
so they could have farms.
Some sort of limiting factor, because if you had like a nation underwater that was as big as a nation, or is like as powerful as the nations above it, you would never be able to, do anything against them. They could rule the ocean. You would have you'd have no chance. Your trade would be crippled. I mean, but then I guess, the above nation would just like fly over the ocean or whatever with airships or something, right? Like they'd eventually figure out a way to avoid such an issue of underwater, civilizations, which is why I think I like the concept of like underwater city states where it's like there is one city that is its own, state and its own nation, right? So that it's like, I don't know, it just seems so strong to be able to control the seas so easily, especially in like medieval times and stuff when people are so heavily involved, so heavily reliant on, that kind of transportation because it's so fast and efficient. So I don't know, but I also love the concept of, beware of crossing this nation's territory, right, with your trade ship, because you never know. Are they going to come, you never know when they're going to come and attack you, which, leads me to my next thing, which might be fun in your little campaign. How dangerous would sea pirates be if they were all like aquatic underwater races? Man, that would be a terrifying group of pirates. And their like their pirate base is just all underwater, like their whole place. And they have like, maybe they even use like airship technology to like bring their ships above the surface of the water when they need to. Oh man.
See, I like to have I don't know what it was, but I've just kind of had this idea of this water nation in the middle being kind of the whipping boy of much of the above the water nations. And so I like your idea here, but what I would do is I'm going to have it be, if any of those groups exist, then all the other nations get mad at this nation, like, what, you can't control your people? What are you doing? Like, you have to deal with this. And they are the ones who are getting in trouble for these pirates that are, they're literally, it's a nation. They shouldn't have any reason to like say those people are under my control, because they're not. They're just because it will really be a racist thing, because they're just like, oh, you're also an aquatic race nation. You must have control over these people.
You're different. You should control your pirates, even though we also have bandits and pirates that we can't control on our borders.
Yes, exactly. It'll be a very unfair standard.
How terrifying would that be? Like, you're in a trade ship, and from underneath you, like, these huge hooks come like flying out of the water and like hook onto your deck of your ship and like start tearing it and breaking it in half. I mean,
yeah, because they don't care if the ship gets destroyed. They don't need it. They're okay, fine if the stuff just rips and falls into the ocean. They'll just grab it there.
Yeah, they'll just go grab it. Like, that would be. I mean, I have to make a pirate group like that in my world, because that is truly terrifying, and that would be a dominant force to reckon with. Like, if you had a group of pirates who were able to be exclusively underwater, even if it was like some normal humans and stuff, but they had like, water breathing and, swimming stuff where they could, like swimming potions and things and magic that would turn them into, like druids that could turn them into sharks and things like that. That would be horrific.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm going to cut us off here.
All right. Yeah. No, let's do it.
And we're going to get into our topic. Now, as I mentioned last week, for this week and the next 2 weeks, maybe a few more, we're going to just be talking about a very specific time in Star Wars. Specifically, the time of the Old Republic. The Old Republic first got mainstream attention when the game Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic came out in 2003 and 2005, respectively. But before we kind of get into like more details about those games and like the stories they introduced us to, we need some background info. So this week should be spoiler free for both games. But this is the backstory
how are you
of
gonna do
those.
That?
Well, because this is the backstory of those games. I'm starting with something that happens before both of the games happen, but are major. They play major effects on the characters of both games because it's a major point for both games. It's a major like backstory moment, and it really helps you understand their world better. And I'm gonna mention some setup for the second Knights of the Old Republic, as our topic is a main event for that game as well. Specifically, I'm going to mention two names, Bao-Dur and Mitra Surik. Now, Bao-Dur is a companion from KOTOR 2, And Mitra Surik is the canonical name of the main character of Knights of the Old Republic 2. Now, I am one of the biggest fans of these games, and I would highly suggest you play them before listening to the next 2 episodes. This episode will be, as I said, spoiler-free. But before you listen to the next 2 episodes, I would highly suggest you play them. But if not, I hope you enjoy the story of them anyways, because they're fantastic.
I mean, just my 2 cents. They're amazing. So highly, highly recommend playing them. They're very, very fun. They're not a huge investment to get into either, to be honest. They're really, really good.
Yeah. They do feel archaic. But
yeah, for sure.
But it's not too bad. It's not too bad. Like, the writing is still incredible and holds up today.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I may be and probably am wrong, but I heard they were doing like a remake of some kind.
I didn't want you to bring this up, my guy.
Oh, you didn't?
Yeah, so
they were.
I have seen so many conflicting reports at this point. So one, we know it's happening. We know it's been made. It was set to come out in this year or maybe next year.
Oh, so it is a thing.
Yes, but they just had a vertical slice of it where they made this kind of like proof of concept showing them, hey, this is what we've made. This is what the game's going to be like, where they brought it to Lucas Games and Disney, and we're like, hey, this is what we got. This is the remake. This is what we did. And I guess they didn't like it because it is put on indefinite hold, as they fired 2 major people from the production of it, and to the creative director and like major people in this. And they're like, it's on indefinite hold. Now, I've heard multiple reports saying it is still in the works. Like, they're still making it. They just are revamping some things. But I am super excited for it. It should be the first game remade, and it should be fantastic. And part of what they're trying to do, because when Disney bought Star Wars, they said, hey, you know all this extra stuff, like these comic books and video games and stuff, they're all non-canon. And they did it with such a wide brush that they didn't really care what they said was non-canon. They were just like, that is so much stuff, we're not going to worry about it. We're just going to say only the movies are canon, pretty much. Movies and TV shows. So this part of this remake is trying to say, hey, we love the story of it. Can we make it canonical? But we're just going to dive in now. This week, we will talk about the Mandalorian War, which is kind of the spark for the events of the first game. Through the Mandalorian War, many Jedi fell to the dark side, creating an incredibly powerful Sith Empire that is the major antagonist of the first game, because they are hunting all Jedi. Now, before we get into the details of the war, we need to understand the culture that it is against. The Mandalorian War is a war started by, the Mandalorians against the Galactic Republic, who was just known as the Republic at the time.
Mandalorians are so cool. I love the Mandalorians.
There's not really a good reason for the start of this war. The reason is built into the Mandalorian culture. Mandalorians believe in strength, battle, war, and honor, with the honor needing to be won in war or battle. This culture, by its beliefs, longs for war and doesn't do well with complacency and peace. Even when not at war, they are raiding the Outer Rim and hurting many people. This made them allies with the Sith more often than the Jedi. What?
Have you, if this is too long of a question, then, we can move on. But have you ever made a nation in D&D where, it's just constantly militaristic and wanting to, raid and attack people? I don't think I ever have.
Yes. But I wanted to see if I could find a way to do it and not make them an antagonist to everybody around them. So I made them want for war. I made them militaristic. I made them everything that would normally be antagonist. But then I gave them a major problem in their own nation So they had to focus all their military and strength and might on that, on attacking that thing.
Is this like the monster thing in the center of their nation or whatever?
Yes. Yep.
That's a good way of doing it. Because
that is.
I feel like they would just get totally destroyed.
Yeah. So, more often the Mandalorians, based on who they are, they focus on, they team up with the Sith. This didn't put them always at enemies of the Jedi, but it was more often that they aided the Sith. As long as they see a benefit, then they would help the Jedi. Now, the raiding of the Mandalorians upon the Outer Rim eventually moved further inward, making their way close to the planet of Taurus. This drew the attention of the Republic, who controlled that space. Despite the Republic's best efforts, the Mandalorians eventually broke through the Republic's defenses and they besieged Taurus. While breaking into the Republic space, they attacked from 2 other points as well and started the time of war called the Onslaught. The Mandalorians were slaughtering thousands across quite a few worlds. And you might be asking at this point, since it's war with the Republic, the Mandalorians must be incredibly devastating to take on Jedi and keep winning like this. The thing is, the Jedi Council decided that they needed to wait and see. They believed the Mandalorians would eventually just decide to stop and it'll all be okay.
So I love it.
So in short, the Republic was alone in this war. Many in the Jedi went to the Council saying, this isn't okay. We can't just sit by as thousands of people are killed. Stop sitting on your asses and let's do something. Many of them were had family that were literally facing the Mandalorians, and they were just forced to just stand by because the Council said no. And the Council continued saying, no, we're going to wait it out and we're going to see, and we'll let you know if we change things. And they even forbade people saying, like, if you do go, you're falling to the dark side. Don't do it. Don't fall into your baser, lesser emotions. Now, many Jedi would have been swayed and okay with this. They would have been like, hey, like, I don't want to fall to the dark side. I'm going to stay good, so I'm not going to do it. But 2 incredibly charismatic Jedi named Revan and Malik straight up told the Council, no, we won't stand by and let the Mandalorians do this. And thanks to their charisma and intelligence, they took tons of Jedi with them to fight in this war.
Oh, I'm so happy that these Jedi did this. This is great.
Now, Revan was a tactical genius. He quickly earned the place he had won by his charisma, leading the Republic and these rogue Jedi to many victories. Revan pushed the Mandalorians to a special planet in their culture, Malachor 5. They were not supposed to step foot on this planet. I don't remember the exact reason, but something about Malachor 5 was sacred to their culture, and you were not supposed to step on the planet. Revan pushed them there and made that Malachor 5 was to be the place where the final battle would take place with the Mandalorian War. He wanted to have a battle that was so devastating to them and kill their leader that he could have them stop. That this would be such a devastating battle for the Mandalorians that they would be forced to just surrender or at least stop and disband. So he began to work and figure out, okay, how can I do this? How can I have such a devastating win that this stops? And he talked to a genius inventor named Bayo-Dur, who created an incredibly powerful weapon called the Mass Shadow Generator. They led the fleets of the Mandalorians to Malachor 5 and began to fight them in space. And Revan faced Mandalore, the leader of the Mandalorians, on the planet. Upon Revan defeating Mandalore, the Jedi General Mitra Surik gave the command to Bayo-Dur, saying to activate the devastating Mass Shadow Generator. The massive fleet battle happening above the planet was suddenly thrown into chaos as a significant portion of both sides' fleets were suddenly pulled into the gravity of the planet, pulling into a gravity vortex, crashing into each other and the planet, heavily fracturing it and making it an inhospitable place to live.
This guy sounds like a great Jedi.
But with this devastating defeat, the war was over. Beodor later said about this moment to his general, Mitra Surik, "I remember standing on the bridge with you and watching the destruction of the Republic, watching ships full of soldiers and Jedi burn and die. I remember the look you had when you turned to me. It was the longest you'd ever looked at me. You didn't say anything, just a nod. Events move quickly then, even in my dreams. Flashes, explosions, you falling. I could feel the pain around me, and then the memory. The drifting husks of the Mandalorian ships, the dead allies, friends, strangers. And then the echo. Lingering. The sound I awakened to in my nightmares. Does anyone deserve the Mandalorians' fate? Even some of their conquered worlds fared better." After this horrifying event, nearly all the Jedi from Malachor 5 either died, fell fully to the dark side, or left both sides, the Jedi and the Sith, the dark and the light, and just left. Because it was so devastating. And the way the Force works is, the Force is the connection point of all life. So all life is a part of this Force. And in having this horrible, devastating moment, there was this horrible, devastating energy that was released from this massive amount of death. And it corrupted and killed and changed the people who experienced it, especially those Force sensitive. Revan and Malak went on to become Sith Lords and rule the galaxy, commanding the Sith Empire and hunting down the Jedi. But the details of that are going to be covered next week, as the next week's topic will be Revan. And that is where we will end our talk on the Mandalorian War.
You know, victories require sacrifice. Worth it. That's brutal.
It was, yeah. So it was a very indiscriminate weapon, and it hurt everyone who was around it as they just experienced the death from this device.
Yeah, so what? Did it just sucked all the ships into the gravitational pull and killed everybody?
Yeah, so it pretty much increased the gravity exponentially on the planet, pulling all of the ships that were flying around the planet quickly into the planet.
And he thought this was going to be like a good idea to sacrifice everything and everybody?
Revan?
Or was it one of those things like this?
Revan thought
despair,
and was correct.
Further suffering.
It worked. There was. I don't want to get into too much detail, because this is what I'm telling you this week is what the world saw and what the world sees that event as. Next week, when we talk about Revan, I'm going to go into why Revan chose to do this, how he chose to do this, and was there any extra meaning about it.
Got it. Okay. Interesting. My brother's a big Star Wars geek, and his favorite character in all of Star Wars is Revan. So, I mean,
Revan's the best. And I have not played the MMO, the Old Republic, and I don't, from what I have seen, I don't like how they've written a lot of the characters from these games.
Yeah, I don't know much about them. Here's another question. So, I know in the newer movies, hashtag somewhat spoiler, but they get a whole army. What was the Republic's army in the Old Republic? I don't remember.
What are you talking about?
What was the Republic's standing army? Did they just have citizens from the Republic, essentially?
No, I mean the Republic is a massive government. Like think like the Senate. All of those nations,
Right,
all of those planets that were present at the Senate talks. Imagine each of those having a like think of like a feudalism thing. Like each one has to give a certain amount of men type thing. Like that alone, thinking about how big populations are on planets, that would be a big army.
Now, I also don't remember this, too. Oh, no, yeah, it would be huge. It would be a giant standing army. But I also don't remember this. The Old Republic and the current Republic.
The Galactic Republic.
The Republic, but the Galactic Republic. What was, like, the difference between the Old Republic and the Galactic Republic?
I mean, this event, so after this event, the Sith Empire went on a heavy, like, we have to find and kill all Jedi. And in the second KOTOR game, you're like, there's like 5 of you that you find, and you have to rebuild the Jedi. And I will say the kind of plans of how the Republic and the Jedi were supposed to work, based on Lucas's original films and what his intentions were, there should never have been these sequel movies. Because the whole point of it is all of the problems of the Jedi and the Republic were like, they have been consistent problems from the time of the Old Republic. And so, like, there are people in KOTOR 2 and KOTOR 1 that are like, why are we doing this? This is terrible. This needs to change. But they weren't able to, because there was the prophecy of the one who was supposed to change things. That was Luke. And by Luke doing things against the way Jedi are supposed to do things, was him not saying, you say that, like, having any emotion is dangerous as a Jedi, and like all these things. And he's like, no, like, that is stupid. I'm gonna leave my training and go help my friends because I know they're in danger. And like, that's showing that he is changing the way that the Jedi are supposed to work. And in the comic books, that's exactly what he does. He creates a different order.
He does some crazy stuff in the comics. He does some crazy things in the comics with the Force.
Mm-hmm. Because he's like, this is not
I don't know
how...
if you know, but doesn't he make like a black hole using the Force and like destroy a bunch of stuff?
I don't know a lot about the comics. But I know that he does what was supposed to happen, where he makes a different Jedi Order so that it doesn't... The problems of people falling to the Sith and all these things are not problems anymore, or at least they're not supposed to be problems anymore.
Yeah, what? So, I mean, I know we're getting crazy long, but it's just interesting. So Luke's Jedi Order, how many Jedi did he have in his Jedi Order?
I don't know Luke's Jedi Order. I will talk to you more about like the ideals of that order in a little bit in Revan's episode next week, and a lot more in Kreia's episode in 2 weeks.
Yeah, we should do like a Star Wars binge week or something, or binge month.
So we're doing.
That's some really fast.
I mean, I can find a third topic easily. So then it will be a month of 4 episodes. It'll be first one Mandalorian War, second one Revan, third one Kreia, and Kreia is a companion from KOTOR 2. And the
she's super cool.
Fourth one might be Darth Adendu. It could be Darth Bane. There's quite a few options. It could be Darth Jar Jar.
Ah, yes, the famous Darth Jar Jar, my favorite character.
The true Lord of the Sith.
The true Lord of the Sith. Canon. Hashtag canon.
It should be.
All right, so what are we going to make?
Many people believe that's
idea?
what George's original intention was, and then there was just so much hate for the character that he changed it.
Oh, really? Because he kind of ruined everything in the movie. Not like, I know a lot of people didn't like his character, but like he like actually like with his like he was the one who recommended.
I mean, he does things
Palpatine
oddly
as the-
finesseful at certain points, and like
yeah,
it's.
not-
I'm not going to go into depth on this. Let's just talk about our topic this week because we're a D&D or a world building podcast, not a Star Wars podcast.
yeah, not discuss about Star Wars. But, hello, welcome to Dungeon Nerd Podcast, where we discuss about Star Wars.
So,
okay, what do we want to create this week?
I was thinking we could either create like a some sort of culture of war, like the Mandalorians. We could create a some sort of just a war in general, that like some sort of war that happens on our world. And I mean, a major thing we have to think about is in this world where gods are treated as celebrities, and you kind of go and see the gods perform and all this stuff. How do they interact with the world around them? If nations are going to war around them, do they interfere? Do they just let it happen? What is the... How do they react to that? How are they supposed to? Do they have to be impartial, even if they don't?
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Boy, what do you think? I mean, I think that some of them would probably be like generals in the war, right? And like gain followers through that. You'd think, right?
See, I kind of like the idea of them almost being forced to be impartial, and they're not allowed to interfere. But I think some of them, I think they're human, like any of it. Like they have emotions and they care about people and things like us. So I think some have like stealthily helped certain nations in certain war.
Yeah, I guess we have to talk about what's the extent of the power they can use to do wars, because like can they just like nuke an entire army because they're gods, or what's the idea?
I think they can, but I think they're not allowed to by like the kind of taskmaster, like ruler of the games, and also the other deities being like, yeah, no, you're not allowed to step on this, because like it would be so devastating if it was gods versus gods on the planet. So they're like, how about this? Like, we can't interfere at all. So the only ones who aren't interfering are ones who are finding a way or trying to find a way to not be caught. So you can't just like nuke because, oh, that's a god effect. Like we know gods are the only ones who can do that. But they have to like find a way to secretly aid their army, the ones they like.
Would they be able to send their champions?
That's really interesting. Do the champions also have to be?
Oh man, because that would be a lot. Like, could you?
Because I actually love the idea of like a champion of a certain like nation literally having to not, and maybe the only way that they would be allowed to go is if they forsake their god and stop following.
Yeah, because like, wouldn't it still lead to the same kind of problem if champions were fighting for their gods too?
It would,
wars? Because then like,
it's clearly a god saying
God
that they give preference.
Yeah, like my god is, you know, I have the.
But I also
God
like the idea
this,
about them being like, of like, some of them, some champions like being bribed to be like, hey, come on our side. It'll look like your god's supporting us, even though it's the god had nothing to do with this champion being there.
You know what we should do on the week we talk about Revan? We should make like a champion who forsaked his god to join a war and the devastation that it caused.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's a really perfect story for kind of what Revan does in Star Wars. I think that'd be a really good idea. But anyways, I don't know, like it's just there's so much. I think they'd be forbidden to, right? Like I think they would only be able to help unless they like forsaked their god or was like, you know, this isn't.
And I think that's really cool.
My God wants me to do.
Do you think? Has a god died by seeing a war that was so devastating and so like against everything he cared about that he told all of his followers to forsake him and help the war? And so in doing that, he got so weak that he pretty much died.
I mean, that'd be a really fun story.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's the... So if... I love that. I think that's absolutely something that probably has happened.
Yeah.
What's the consequences brought down by the taskmaster, the taskmaster, if a god does that? Like, are they...
Well, I think that's if they forsake them to go to the war, I think there's... I find it hard to see the taskmaster being able to fully, admonish them. Because, I think the champions and stuff are all, free will sentient beings, so it's hard to prove that it was the gods' intent for them to do that.
I think you could probably prove it, but the question is would the gods do anything to him? Like, if he was like, no, screw this, I'm not listening to this contract that we made, I'm helping in this war. Like, what is his consequence? What's his punishment if he just outright did something like that? Yeah, I think it probably would be, right?
Mm-hmm. I think it has to be something that's really harsh, like just straight up death. Otherwise, people would just...
What's a fate worse than death for a god? Losing your godhood and becoming like a peasant?
See, I think death is the worst.
Would be worse for a god.
I think death is the worst.
Dying. Well, just imagine, knowing that you once were a powerful entity that, participated in these events and had followers and had, glory and fame. And your punishment... Actually, probably your punishment would be they killed you, your god form, and rebirthed you as a lowly peasant or something. That'd probably be pretty bad.
Were you gonna say low life?
You would show up to those... No, I wasn't gonna say low life. I was gonna say lowly peasant, which I did.
So my brain is going to something that hurts them, but also it hurts something they love. But I'm only seeing killing their followers as the thing, but I also don't understand how that could be seen as justified. Yeah, because the people didn't do anything.
Yeah, it'd probably just be ending the god, right? Just getting rid of the god, killing the god.
Yeah.
I think that's probably what would happen. But, I don't know, I like the... Yeah, no, let's just say that the punishment's probably death. That's probably what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Non-existence anymore. You are just gone forever.
Yeah.
Would they erase the memory of this god from people, so they have no chance of coming back?
No. I think it's seen as... we are living up to our contract. So, they specifically leave it around so that people know, your god cannot step in for you.
I think, I agree. And I think
they try to justify it, with, oh, but if we did, it would be stepping on your free will type thing. We just want you to have your freedom. If you choose to go to war, we shouldn't be able to step on that.
Yeah, if you choose to fight, we shouldn't be able to intervene and, ruin that fight.
Yeah, you chose to do this. This is free will.
Yeah, I think that's what they would do for sure. But now the next question is what war was so horrible that this god had to sacrifice their godhood to end it? Because, now we got to get...
I'm imagining it's one of the gods who went away from the games. So I don't think they're at their strongest right now. I think they chose to go away from the games, and in doing so have gotten weaker than most of the other gods, so they don't have as big of a following. And I think, maybe a local town or the cult group or whatever that they are a part of is under attack or something.
Here's a question that what you were just saying kind of brings up to me. What were to happen if a god somehow gets out of this contract and attacks the world with his own nation / army? Are the gods not able to intervene then, or would they be able to? Because that could be a pretty terrible war, too, that would cause a god to forsake their contract.
Yeah, it would be pretty terrible. I definitely think the gods could step in at that point, but I think there has to be like some sort of ruling on like, can you hurt the people?
Yeah, like a Geneva Convention for the gods.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think there's a Geneva Convention on like how much damage you could do to like non-gods.
Yeah. So then the question still remains, what human atrocity was being committed that caused this god to rebel? Or what god wanted power and joined the war? Something like that. What do we see? How do we see this happening? I like the idea.
Oh, hold on. I got an idea.
Where, like,
What if, because we haven't created any of these yet, what if it's devils? And like this is like one of the first signs of devils in the world. So the devils are like giving power to like their own champions, but there's nobody knows that's what that is, but this god does. And this god realizes that the only way that the world can be saved and combat this is by sacrificing its own champions to fight them, because as of right now their champions are locked in as, oh no, this is a human conflict, you can't attack, because none of them believe a devil is involved.
So my thought was very similar to that, where it was, what if there was some sort of like catastrophic event that could occur, but none of the other gods believed that was the case, right? And so this god went to go and fight it, right? And so I love the idea of like devils doing that. How are the devils operating then? Like secretly, do they just have like control of a nation or what?
I think they have control of the like heads of a nation.
Agreed. Yeah, I think that's probably what would happen. And then the question becomes, do the devils have a quote-unquote god in the pantheon who's trying to, like, limit the gods' powers so that when they do invade, the gods are contractually obligated to stay out of the war?
No. I think that the devils they're like an aspect of gods, but they're like born from the god's blood.
It's like, I think it would be interesting if there was like either a god who was making deals with the devil, or if there was like a devil masquerading as a god who was trying to limit the god's powers through these contracts, so that when the devils invaded, they can invade without the gods intervening until they want to like try and destroy them and fight them.
Okay.
Maybe take their
What are you thinking? The devils are still from the Nine Hells?
I don't know. I didn't think that far ahead.
Because I was thinking they were just born from like the blood of gods.
Even if we did that, I could still see that what I was saying be a thing. Even if it was like devils were made from the bloods of the gods, I could still see that being a way the devils are trying to gain power.
Yeah.
But I think the question becomes, is that the way we would want, like, I mean, the campaign wouldn't have to go that way, but is that the way that we would see the world heading, even just a little bit?
Well, so is that... our villain, as of right now, is the god that is doing the horrible things and trying to do what again?
He was trying to... So he's the god who, like, can gain power from consuming other gods' souls and stuff.
Yeah.
And he has those people who are trying to steal the souls of the gods from their, like, essentially, what's the lich's thing that they make? But essentially from their phylactery, essentially.
Yeah.
So it would be very interesting if this guy was actually, like, either a devil or working with the devils, trying to gain his own army and following to be able to take over the gods and rule at the seat in the head of the gods. Like, he's permanently stuck, because we have him stuck at, like, number 6 or whatever it was. And he can't
Yes.
He's losing patience with the current system.
Yeah, he's trying to be the number one.
Him trying. Yes.
Yep.
And he's losing patience with that current system.
And so, I don't. So, are you saying you want to have devils be like a lower level big bad?
I don't think I would say lower level. I mean, devils are pretty. They're pretty crazy.
Well, by lower level, I mean not the final big bad evil guy. So it could be literally 15, but I'm just meaning not because the big bad evil guy is clearly this god.
I mean, I think it'd be fun. You think so? Or no? Do you want to stay away from that?
No, I'm cool with it. I just wanted to figure out where we were planning these devils.
I think so. I think it'd be fun to do like a, this,
because I like the idea of their trying to. First off, somebody needs to prove that there are other creatures that are able to, one, make champions, and two, grant abilities. And so I think that would be part of like the parties thing. Would they have to figure that out?
Well, right, yeah, but yeah, what you just said kind of, I don't know, made me have a brain moment.
Mm-hmm.
What if, which is the greatest term ever, I guess I had a brain moment. What if like we reject the idea of this god can gain power from absorbing gods, but he's using these souls / the blood of this god to create these devils, to create more of them.
I kind of like that, yeah.
Because if we have devils created by the blood of gods and like the destruction of a god, then he is trying to, build this army and make this army for himself because he's going to take over, he's going to take over the Pantheon and take over the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would be really fun. And that's why he's stealing these souls. And he's risking it all to steal these souls so that he can create these entities that he is, trying to use to, get, have his objectives met. And I think it'd be fun. I think it'd even be fun if we so my mind is going to like EXU Calamity, and like if we didn't even set the campaign in this part, and this is old history, and he succeeded or something, and it caused a massive destruction of the world. That could be really fun too, like a post-calamity world type thing, where like this guy succeeded, and that's now why devils exist, and he is now a demon lord or whatever. He is now a god of the devils because he succeeded. That could be really fun too, to have a world.
It can, and I think but I really like the
Yeah,
I really like this guy as the big bad evil guy though.
No, agreed. But I'm just saying, if you wanted to,
yes,
you could. You could turn this into he succeeded, and the world is now like this is post rule of the gods, right? Because he succeeded, and he was banished or something down into the 9 hells or whatever, and that's how your origin story for devils and 9 hells came about, right? That could be a fun little origin story that you add on to.
Yeah.
But I think the goal is the party to stop the calamity from occurring, right? Like to stop this disaster from happening.
Mm-hmm.
If the party does nothing, okay, if they decide to do other things, does this guy succeed?
Yeah, because he kind of blindsides the other gods.
Yeah, I agree.
And so with that, he has built up, quite a few nations that are on his side as he has corrupted their higher-ups with the devils.
Yep.
And then he is also has his own powerful champions and such. And that
would be so much fun.
Yes, it would. And so he would just suddenly have an army at the doors of the gods and been like,
who's number 6 now?
Yeah. Could number 6 do this? No.
Yeah. I love
and
that.
Overpower.
I think that's fantastic. How long has he been planning this?
I think for a long time.
Yeah, I think it would have to be. Right? I mean, he's spent a lot of years probably crafting this.
what are these devils able to actually do? In terms, like, how are they different from gods?
I think, I don't know, this is gonna get really weird, but why does the blood of gods create devils? Is it because it's like the blood of a god is made of like pure energy to create anything, and if it like taints or spoils, it becomes like evil? But gods in our world can be both good and
see. I kind of think that it's something that, since we made it be this other god, has to affect it. I think this guy is doing something to the blood to make devils.
Yeah, agreed.
So maybe he has to create some sort of like. So maybe he has to create some sort of like simulacrum or some sort of like abomination of a humanoid creation, like of life, some sort of feature like that then he puts the blood into, and it creates it and distorts it into the devil form.
Do you think he has to be like absent from his station as number 6 while he's doing this? Like, is there times where he's gone for like a month at a time?
Yeah, I think they can go on vacation as much as anybody else.
Heck yeah. And that's what he's doing while he's gone every once in a while?
Yeah.
Does he have his own plane that he's created this on so that he can like keep it secret? What's the idea? How does he hide this from the world? Is it just like under the guise of a nation?
I think even if he has his own plane, I don't think he uses it for illegal activity. Because that would be too much of like, oh, you're clearly doing bad things.
Yeah, so then where is he hiding this
I think he's hiding it in like
army that he's making?
A surprisingly nearby to the Mecca location. Because the last place they're going to look for something is like this would be nearby where they're constantly at.
Yeah, or like a neighboring nation would probably be a good spot too.
Mm.
Like a seemingly harmless nation where the rulers are kind of corrupted over by these devils and stuff, where nobody suspects. Like, they come and participate in the game.
Where he is known for taking his vacations.
Yeah. Like, it's a beautiful spot or whatever, you know?
Mm.
And they're just peaceful. They're good. They are, you know, like, they participate in the games, they enjoy the festivities and fun, and then they go home, you know?
Yep.
Like, I guess that's probably what it would have to be.
I think I am going to cut us off there. This has been episode 94 of Dungeoneered. Thank you all for listening. And if you listen to us on any podcasting apps with ratings and reviews, it really helps if you write a review of the show. It shows that people are connecting with the show and engaging with it in more ways than just one, and also kind of puts it to the forefront of that app store, of that app's page, letting people know, hey, people are interested in this. If you want to write to us, you can write to us at dungeoneered@hotmail.com. We'd love to hear from you if you have ideas for topics, lukewarm opens, or just want to talk about stuff you created, or things we created that you really liked, you used in your game. We'd love to hear it all. Anything you can think of to add, Aaron?
No, I think that's it.
Cool. Well, thank you all for listening. And as I always say, always remember.
I was just about to say, I have the mental fortitude to withstand this pause. I clearly do not.
To be the sharpest barrel in the bunch. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.